Hello and welcome to EE 447. I'm your instructor, Gregory Myers. For this particular video, we're going to take a look at another type of external link. This time we're going to see how to use cascading style sheets, however, though using them or creating them rather in an external file. And so a couple of things before we get started. First of all, you're going to want to leverage one of our prior examples, preferably example table 04, although any file with a significant amount of style CSS content would be useful for this particular example. The second thing that we want to take a look at is the W3 Schools documentation, and just sort of a reminder of what we've already seen is we've worked with inline style sheets. We've also worked with internal, and I perhaps didn't formally state it, but that was when you had the style element up in the head tag. And so the third option then is going to be having an external cascading style sheet, and that's pretty common for a couple of reasons. Number one, it supports a architecture that's pretty common in software engineering, and that is essentially what we'll look at as the model view controller, where the model is essentially your content in your page, your data in your page. And you would agree that style is essentially just a view. Now, there's going to be some limits about what you can do. We're actually going to revisit this topic a couple of times, also with XML and transforms there. But in this particular case, what we're going to do is we're going to treat the HTML as if it's the data, and the CSS is purely the style. And so you can have quite a bit of flexibility by simply just changing the style in your cascading style sheets. Now, what is the advantage of pushing all of the cascading style sheet information to a separate file? Well, that means that all you have to do if you want to change the look and the feel of your website is you simply overwrite or change the cascading style sheet file, and essentially you can sort of think of that as a skin, if you would, and that's how a lot of websites or content management systems allow for you to get many different looks and feels with essentially the same data, the same HTML. So the first thing that we'll want to note is the file extension. So we've been dealing with the .html file extension. We're now going to be dealing with a new file extension, the .css file extension. And we are going to go back to our example table 04. And what we're going to do is we're going to strip out all of the style associated with that. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to put it in a separate file. And so what we want to do is note here that instead of the style tag in the head, we actually have a link tag in the head. And if you take a look real quick at the HTML documentation for the link tag, you'll see that we're going to use a couple of attributes. One is going to be the REL that's required. It shows the relationship. We're interested in the style sheet. We're also going to be interested in the type. And then the third one is going to be the actual reference or location of the style sheet. So those are going to be the three attributes that we're going to use. And then in that style sheet, we simply use the same format that we did essentially with the inline. There were some differences between the inline and the internal, but essentially we're going to use the exact same syntax. So I'm going to move this over here again out of our way, and what we want to do is go back to Visual Studio now, and we want to go ahead and save our example table underscore 04.html. We're going to save it now as example external underscore 02. Okay, so this is the second in the series. You can sort of think of this as joining our two series, table series and the external content series together. They may diverge again in the future, but we're going to start with that. And then also I want you to take a second to remember the name of this HTML file. So we're going to go ahead and copy it. We're going to make the style sheet have the same name just so that we can track it a little better. It's not necessary. You can call it anything you'd like. And then the other thing we want to do is in the title, we want to make it reflect what we're doing here. And so we're going to call this example external _ 02. And then the introduction to styled HTML tables using external CSS. All right, so that's what we're going to do in this one. So before we lose the name of our file out of our buffer, go ahead and go to File, New, File. And depending on your ID, you may have to dig around a little bit for this, but what you're looking for in Visual Studio will be under the Web tab. And we're looking for a style sheet. You'll notice that it's a CSS cascading style sheet. And then go ahead and hit Open. By default, it goes ahead and populates it with the body tag. We'll see that that is not essential unless you have something that's universal. But what we did want to do is we want to come back over to our, I'm going to split my screen real quick so we can do this a little easier. I want to go ahead and come over here, and I'm going to just basically strip out anything that looks like style. We're going to leave the style tag in temporarily, but I'm going to go ahead and strip anything out that looks like style. So the only thing left is the open and close of our style tags. I'm going to paste this into our style sheet and then go ahead and save. And I inadvertently did what I didn't mean to do, and that was I accidentally lost it in my buffer. But in this case, I'm just going to type it in manually. It's going to be example _ external _ 02.css. And we're going to go ahead and save. Now, we said we want to take the style reference out. That tag comes out. And what we want to do is instead, we want to replace it with a link tag. And the link tag, as we saw earlier, is going to have 3 attributes that are going to be useful to us. Essentially, the relationship to the HTML page. In this case, it's going to be the style sheet. The second is going to be the type, which is going to be text/CSS. We'll actually do something similar to this multiple times this semester. And then the last one is going to actually be reference to the file. And if you've named it correctly, or if named it located, put it in the correct location, we should see example 02.css. And then you want to close your tag. And this particular tag is self-closing. Now, before we actually see if this works, what I'd like to do is I'd like to use our comment tag, and I'm going to go ahead and save it real quick, and you'll notice that now we're back to our very bare bones, ugly looking table with no style. And then that's just, we did that just to prove that in fact I'm pulling no tricks on you here. And so now I'm going to go ahead and remove my comments here. I'm going to save it, and there you go. We're back. And so what you've done now is you have completely separated essentially the data and the presentation, or the view. And so now you can make as many variations on your style sheet as you want, and just simply by either rotating out the file or changing the name, you can have dramatically different looks in your web page. Hopefully you found this video useful. As always, don't hesitate to leave me some comments, give me some feedback. Thank you very much.